Hi you guys, let's talk about multiplying fractions. First, look at the vocabulary. Multiplicative inverse. That is the exact same thing as a reciprocal. So let's say I started you off with 3 over 4. Well, I'd want you to flip it and tell me it's 4 over 3, and I would box my answer. And notice that I did not put an equal sign. I used an arrow because these are not equal to each other. Now, take a look. What if I started you off as a mixed number, 1 2/3? Well, first you would write the mixed number as an improper fraction. Start at the 3. 3 times 1 is 3, and then add 2. Plus 2 would be 5 over 3. Now that it's an improper fraction, we can flip it, and the reciprocal would be 3 over 5, and I would box my answer. When we're multiplying fractions, just take a look at this example. 2 over 5 times 7 over 9. Well, all I have to do is multiply the top, the numerators. 2 times 7 would give me 14 on top, and then I multiply the denominators. 5 times 9 would give me 45 on the bottom, and I could box my answer. If I had algebra, just variables, a over b times c over d, we just multiply the numerators, a times c on top, and then multiply the denominators, b times d on the bottom. Okay, let's look at example 1, multiplying fractions. Look at a, negative 3 over 4 times negative 5 over 8. Well, the first thing I'm going to do, see these negatives? I'm going to let them float up to the numerators. So I write negative 3 on top and negative 5 on the top. And then over, and look at my denominators, 4 and 8, 4 times 8. So then I just multiplied. Negative 3 times negative 5 makes positive 15, and 4 times 8 makes 32. So I have 15 over 32, and I box my answer. Take a look at B. I have negative 2 over 3 times 9 over 10. Well, the first thing I want you to do is write it out. Let that negative go up to the 2. So I have negative 2 over 3 times 9 over 10. Now, I want you to look across like an invisible X. Look at the 3 and the 9 and ask yourself, what goes into 3 and into 9? Well, you should say 3. So notice over here with my red, I did 9 divided by 3 and 3 divided by 3. And then I crossed it out. 3 divided by 3 leaves me 1. 9 divided by 3 leaves me 3. This is called cross-canceling, okay? Take a look at the negative 2 and the 10 and ask yourself what goes into 2 and 10. And you should say 2. So here you'll see me write negative 2 divided by 2 in green and 10 divided by 2. And so negative 2 divided by 2 gives me negative 1. 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. So I rewrote it over here. It's negative 1 times 3 on top over 1 times 5 on the bottom. So negative 1 times 3 is just negative 3. 1 times 5 is just 5, and I box my answer. Okay, take a look at the inverse property of multiplication. So here's how this works. If I have a, I could write a as a over 1, and then I flip it. And so I'd put the 1 on top and the a on the bottom. And the reason we do that with the inverse property, remember, something gets destroyed. And with fractions, the a's would cancel out and leave us with a positive 1. Take a look at the numbers. It's a little bit easier to see it with numbers. Let's say I had 6 times 1 over 6. Well, that's the same as 1 over 6 times, and now I could write the 6 as a fraction, 6 over 1. And notice when we look across, 6 goes into 6 one time, so these would cancel to make a 1, so the whole thing would become 1. Or take a look over here. If I had 5 over 3, I could multiply it by its reciprocal, 3 over 5. The 3's would cancel, the 5's would cancel, and it creates that giant 1. So take a look at example 2. What is the value of 7 over 12 times 3 over 5 times 12 over 7? Well, notice how I wrote it out over here. 7 over 12 times 3 over 5 times 12 over 7. And here's the cool part. As long as you match up a numerator, a top number, with a denominator, you can cross cancel. So 7 divided by 7 gives me 1. 7 divided by 7 gives me 1. Over here I could match up this 12 on top with the 12 on the bottom. And so 12 divided by 12 gives me 1. 12 divided by 12 gives me 1. So then I just multiply the numerators. 1 times 3 times 1 gives me 3. 1 times 5 times 1 gives me 5, so I get 3 over 5. And that would match choice D. Okay, let's practice let's look at the guided practice, find the product, and simplify if possible. Look at number 1, 11 over 12 times 18. Well, here's how I would write it. 11 over 12 times, and make the 18 look like a fraction, 18 over 1. And now remember, look across. See the 12 and the 18? They have a common factor of 6. And so we're going to divide 18 divided by 6 gives me 3. And then 12 divided by 6 gives me 2. And I just bring down the 11 and bring down the 1. Now I multiply the numerators. So 11 times 3 gives me 33 on top. 2 times 1 gives me 2 on the bottom. And so you could write it as 33 over 2, or you can change that improper fraction to a mixed number by doing a little division. Remember the in and out. So I can show you 33 goes on the inside, 2 goes on the outside. 2 goes into 33, or let's do 2 into 3 is 1, and then I subtract, I get 1, bring down the 3, 2 into 13 is 6, that's 12, and I subtract and get 1. And now I can write this. So 2 goes into 33 16 times. I put the 16 with 1 left over, 1 over 2. Okay, take a look at number 2. Negative 4/5 times 5 over 6. Let that negative go up to the 4. So I have negative 4 over 5 times 5 over 6. And now look across. See the 5s? Their greatest common factor is 5. So I divide both by 5. Look at the negative 4 and the 6. Their greatest common factor is 2. So I divide both by 2. And now we just simplified. Negative 4 divided by 2 gives me negative 2. 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. Go down to the bottom. 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. And 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. And so now I just multiply straight across. Negative 2 times 1 gives me negative 2. 1 times 3 gives me 3. And I box my answer. Look at number 3. 1 over 5 times 3 over 8 times 5. Well, the first thing I do is write it out. So 1 over 5 times 3 over 8, and I make the 5 look like a fraction, 5 over 1. And now I look for where I could cross cancel, and I see these 5s right here. So I divide both of them by 5, and then I write, so I have 1 on top, and then 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. Then I copy the 3 on top, the 8 on the bottom. Then 5 divided by 5 gives me this one, and I bring down the other one. And now I just multiply all the numerators. 1 times 3 times 1 gives me 3. 1 times 8 times 1 gives me 8. And I box my answer. Look at number 4. 6 over 13 times 13 over 6. Well, you should know what's happening here. Look at the 13s. They're going to cancel each other out and make 1s. And the 6s are going to cancel each other out and make 1s. So I just get 1 over 1, or just 1. Okay, so we're going to, again, find the product and simplify if we can. Take a look at number 5. 2 and 1/3 times 1 and 1/2. Well, first, make these improper. Start at the denominator. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 gives me 7 over 3, times, start at the denominator. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 gives me 3 over 2. And now look to see if we can cross cancel. Look at those 3s. So we're going to divide both of those by 3. So I get 7 over 1 times 1 over 2. And now I multiply straight across. Numerator times numerator. 7 times 1 gives me 7. 1 times 2 gives me 2. And now you can write it as an improper fraction, 7 over 2, or do the in and out. 7 goes on the inside, 2 goes on the outside, and divide. 2 goes into 7 3 times. And there's 1 left over, so we write it as 3 and 1/2. Take a look at 6. Negative 6 times 4 and 2/3. We'll write negative 6 as a fraction. Negative 6 over 1 times, and then start at the 3. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14 over 3. And now look across at the 6 and the 3. They have a common factor of 3, so divide it out. Negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. Put the 1 down there, put the 14 up above, and then 3 divided by 3 is 1. So now multiply straight across. Negative 2 times 14 gives you negative 28. 1 times 1 gives you 1. So negative 28 over 1 is the same as negative 28. Take a look at 7. Negative 5 over 8 times negative 3 and 1/10. Now, let the negative go up, so I have negative 5 over 8. And now be careful with that negative in front of the 3. Ignore it for just one quick second. Start at the 10. 10 times 3 is 30. 30 plus 1 gives me 31. Now bring the negative down. So it's negative 31 over 10. And now look across here. Look at the negative 5 and the 10. They have a common factor of 5. So let's divide that out. Negative 5 divided by 5 leaves me negative 1. And bring down the 8 times, bring down the negative 31, and then 10 divided by 5 gives me 2. And now multiply straight across. Negative 1 times 31 gives you positive 31. 8 times 2 gives you 16. That's an improper fraction, so we could divide 31 on the inside, 16 on the outside. 16 goes into 31 one complete time, and there's 15 left over. So put 15 over 16. Okay, take a look at 8. You get 1 1/2 times 1 2/9. So start at the denominator, look at the 2. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So I get 3 over 2 times, now start at the 9. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 2 is 11 over 9. And now look across, I can see the 3 and the 9, they have a common factor of 3, so I divided both by 3. 3 divided by 3 gives me 1. I brought the 2 down, brought the 11 down, and 9 divided by 3 gives me 3. And now multiply straight across. 1 times 11 gives me 11. 2 times 3 gives me 6. 11 over 6 is a great answer, or put the 11 on the inside, the 6 on the outside, and divide. 6 goes into 11 one time, and there's 5 left over. So that would be 1 and 5 over 6. Okay, let's evaluate the expression when x is negative 1/2 and y is 2 over 5. And we're going to simplify if we can. So take a look at number 9. Negative 2 over 3 times x. So I write negative 2 over 3 times, and I plug in the value, negative 1 over 2. And now I just look across, look at the negative 2 and the 2, and I see they have a common factor of 2. So I'm going to divide that out. So negative 2 divided by 2 gives me negative 1. I bring down the 3 times, bring down the negative 1, and then 2 divided by 2 is 1. Now I multiply straight across. Negative 1 times negative 1 gives me positive 1. 3 times 1 gives me 3, and I can box my answer. Take a look at 10. Negative 7 times y. Well, I write negative 7 over 1, make it look like a fraction, times, and then for y I plugged in 2 over 5. And so now I don't see anywhere that I can cross cancel, so I just multiply straight across. Negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. 1 times 5 is 5. Now negative 14 over 5 is great, or make it a mixed number. So put the in and out. Put the 14 inside, 5 outside, and divide. 5 goes into 14 2 complete times, and then there's 4 left over. So it would be 2 and 4/5. But don't forget the negative. See the negative in front of the fraction? You have to put the negative in front of the mixed number as well.